Women, they do stuff. Especially now in this modern world. There once was a time where, they couldn't even vote. Now they be on beaches showing off their tatas and voting. Yeah, that's right. And not only can they vote, they can drive. Way to go, women. God, I'm proud of you. I know you needed a tough man like me to tell you how great you are, and I'm here to do it.
What are you on your perv mustache and mullet arc? What's going on here, King Jiffy?
Cordon, I'm just trying to talk about women as people here, as more than just things to ogle at.
Oh wow, what would we have ever done without you, you sweet fat idiot boy?
Oh wait, I get it. This is condescending as shit when I bring up women's rights issues before a game that has nothing to do with it. Huh, never would have thought of that.
There you go, Captain Microjunk, you're finally getting it.
I guess the only course of action now is to just get to the lady herself, Shelly Bombshell Harris, the Global Defense Force broad, the bad mamma jamma who's got 3 games under her belt, starting with Bombshell, a twin-stick shooters that nobody cared about. This wasn't the end for our dear girl, no, not by a long shot, because you see Void Point, they saw something in Shelly Bombshell Harris, and they decided to take her from a weird twin-stick game that nobody cared about to the queen of build engine shooters. That's right, baby. Stand with the king. That's right, Duke, because now she was standing on your level. She was a force to be reckoned with. Ion Fury really put her on the top of the peak. It was critically, commercially successful, and of course, they were gonna do a 3rd game. But you see, Void Point wasn't ready to jump into another game yet. They didn't have the time, they didn't have the resources, so Slipgate Ironworks, the people behind the twin-stick shooters, they wanted another opportunity. This was their chance to really hit that G-spot and really spread those lips and lick real nice. I have to say, upon that first trailer, that tongue was doing its job on a micro penis. Let me tell you, when she looked up and looked at me and I started to get the feels and I thought we were going to dive into the character of Shelly Bombshell Harris, I was seeing grand cityscapes. I was seeing weird 90s, 2000 style graphics. I was so hyped for this game. You had no idea. I saw people out there complaining, saying stuff like, oh no, it's a 3D game now, it's not a build engine game. And my first thought was, shut the fuck up. I don't care. I love the idea that they started with a 2D build engine game and they were going to move into the 3D era, instantly setting my imagination on fire. This was going to be the series that slowly trekked through the generations of FPS games. This was going to be the series that did it. Not only was it going to tell the story of a badass broad, but it was also going to be a mirror that looked back at the great eras, only doing it better. This literally felt like I was going to get the good Blood 2, the good Duke Nukem Forever. Yeah, Shadow Warrior did have the good reboot, but that doesn't count. That wasn't a sequel to a build engine game. It was like a prequel, reboot, weird shit. This was going to be our rebirth. This was it. I was so amped. There was nothing that was going to stop me from buying this game. I mean, the trailer even solidified itself with showing John Blade from the Sin games. This series wasn't just going to be like wearing its inspiration on its shoulder. No, it was crawling up inside of its butthole. It was now a part of the same universe. How sick is that? But then the game released, and every review I saw from every trusted YouTuber, every trusted reviewer I know, was very middling. And that was disappointing. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I waited. And then it went on sale on PlayStation. I said, fine, I'll pick you up. I'll see how you are. And I have to say, the initial cutscene starting this game out gave me hope. It had my balls clenched really close to me, and they're already pretty close to me, so they basically inverted. But you had an old colleague, the general, who your commanding officer was waking you up saying, Shelly, we need you. It's time for you to get back in action, which is a great cold opening to just really pull you out, saying, yeah, we understand there's stuff that happened in the past, we're not going to address that story, we're here, we're now, we're going to do this shit, this is our game. I like that it just grabbed me by the tiny wiener and pulled me in. That's the type of stuff I like to see, real pushing me toward the objective I need, not to mention starting off with a giant explosion, just like the last game. I mean, where could this go wrong? We're already on the right foot. Well, as soon as you get control of the character, it just starts plummeting down to the shit heaps of a sewer world. Not that it's a sewer level, but I think I would have preferred a sewer level to this opening, boring, lab facility, generic crap that we are given. Now, this whole opening section is like a giant tutorial. It is the longest, most drawn-out tutorial in the world. Now, you might be into some cock and ball femdom torture, where you like to crawl across the floor like the little bitch that you are and have her step on you with your heels. But that's not me, baby. I like getting right into the action, and you don't get a gun for like an obscene amount of time in this opening section. It is really wanting you to mess with all the computer terminals and really pick up all the pieces of trash and throw them across the room. And this whole time, while it's trying to pretend to be an immersive sim, it's drip feeding you weapons. It'll give you a shock baton, and then you'll go a little ways, and then it'll tell you, oh, this is how you jump, and then you jump, and it's like, oh, fuckily nipply do. This is what we're gonna do next. You're gonna punch. Whoa, woodily diddly diddly do. Time to go through another boring lab room. And to be honest, I could understand how if you bought this game and you were in this opening section, you would instantly shut this bitch off and shove it to your backlog, saying, yep, not for me. This is not my type of game, alright? I am not about to mess with the most boring generic game ever made. This shit is slop incarnate. I could see that mindset, because when you do eventually get a pistol, it's not the lover boy. No. It's the most boring sci-fi square gun you've ever seen. It's starter pistol number 1 from every FPS game from the 90s. This shit is generic as your grandma on a goddamn Tuesday. Geriatric son of a bitch is what I'm talking about. Like, I don't get it. I really don't understand why you wouldn't just hand me the lover boy at the beginning of the game. Say, yeah, go hog wild. We only put like 6 enemies in this opening section anyways. Have some fun. I don't understand why we needed to add this whole new weapon. The only time this pistol gets useful is later in the campaign when you finally get to do some upgrades. You can turn it into a burst fire or an automatic or whatever, and it will actually like tear some holes into a pussy. But until then, it's just the slog of a piece of brick that looks way too stupid to even be in this cool robot hand. And don't you fret, my little darlings, because this isn't the only gun you get in the tutorial. Nope, you do get the shotgun. No, it's not the cool grenade launcher looking shotgun from the last game that also has an alt fire of grenades. No. They decided to go back to the basics and make it a goddamn pump. And they made it a pump with a magazine. Kind of a weird idea. Why wouldn't you just make it a semi-automatic shotgun? Especially if you're like this military police type thing. I don't know why you need a pump on it. That's kind of illogical. What you would have moved past the tube-fed magazine pump when you went to a magazine. I don't understand why you would put a pump on this gun. It makes absolutely no sense. But the design isn't terrible. It does look like your grandpa's side-by-side with some sci-fi shit slapped on top of it. Only it's not the side-by-side boomstick. You don't get that till later. That has a great name, by the way. The Mother Flacker. What a great-ass name for a shotgun. Love that. But yeah, it just kind of looks like a boomstick, but it's not a boomstick. Weird design. I didn't want to mess with it too much. Really wasn't my thing. It doesn't feel terrible. Every gun in this game kind of feels like a bad version of like a Halo gun or a bad version of a Half-Life gun, which I'm sure that they were trying to go for like those vibes, because that's what this whole game is trying to go for, but I don't think they ever stuck the landing. Especially in this opening section. I know I'm harping on it and we've been here a long time, but you haven't played the game. If you're watching this video and have played the game, you understand how annoying and long this opening tedious bullshit was. But then the game did something I didn't expect. Now, I was about to put down the controller. I wasn't hating on it. It felt okay. I wanted to see. It had my intrigue because, I don't know, bad games tend to grab me by the chest hair and twist me in real tight and give me some sugar late at night. But this game wanted me to keep going, and once I got outside, I understood that there was a chance that I could like this game. These open areas, these giant open skyboxes and the rock walls sucked me in and sucked me off without any teeth. Now, I haven't had one without any teeth, but I'm sure it's wonderful, because the first time I did get one, the chick had braces and I got stuck. But I'm telling you right now, this is where I saw some light at the end of the tunnel. This is where I saw that this game had some truly untapped potential, some wonderful ideas, and I knew I was going to be finishing this bitch. I fell so in love with the Southwestern Jizz Festival landscape. I have to say I love it. It's gorgeous. It reminds me of where I grew up. Now, I grew up in northern Nevada, but I had family in southern Nevada, so I used to go to Red Rock and all that type of jazz. It was like when I first fired up Postal 4 and I was in Arizona. It reminded me of going to Arizona with my family. I love this. It takes me back. Call it nostalgia. Pull my chest hair in, give me a nice little kiss, and call me Jimmy. I like this type of stuff. I was feeling it. I was feeling it right. It was something I truly didn't expect. Now, I know I said when I saw the trailer I was hyped for this. I was more hyped for the shooting and the fun type of boomer shooter fun. That's what I was going for. I was like, it's going to take me back to that Halo era. But I wasn't expect to actually get that Halo gorgeous vibe when I walked out and I looked at the open scenery. I didn't expect that. Not only was it more fun in terms of actually being able to engage in combat and look at gorgeous scenery, though it just wasn't boring lab number 7, I was getting to run a little crane minigames. That's cool. This crane minigame was hype. Now, they do play out the crane minigame way too many times in this game. I will be upfront and honest with you on that. But at least the controls are fun. Everything feels like in place. It works well. And they knew it worked well. That's why I put it in a few different places in this game. But I had fun with this. This was a fun little puzzle. It's not overly complicated. I mean, yeah, it could be a little more thought put behind it. But I don't know. I like stacking cars. I'm a simple man. Ooga booga, look at me go. I'm having a blast. This is what life's about. Completely doing a 180 from my initial impression of this game, all because now I'm getting to look at cool shit, kill cool things, and stack cars. And I mean, this level didn't get any worse. I mean, even after I was doing the fun shooting and the stacking cars, it was like, okay, climb up the stacked cars and you'll get to see more cool stuff. There's like an overpass and it feels like you're in a real place. This is cool level design. I'm messing with this. Then when you get up there, there's roadblocks and there's cars, and while you're fighting the enemies, if the blockades are, yes, they're there because it's level design and you know that you gotta avoid getting shot in the bussy, but you also know that you're like, this makes sense because it's on a road. Same with the broke down RV on the side of the road. It feels like something there. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I ran into an invisible wall right as I got to like this little cool water area. I was like, I was wanting to go see if there's something behind the waterfall, but no, invisible walls. And you're like, I see. You guys were like almost doing the thing, which kind of makes me look back at that first opening section that's pretending to be an immersive sim, and it's like, you're not really that type of game. You know you're not that type of game, but this game keeps trying to trick you into thinking it's that type of game. It's all over the place, and that's where the problems in this game lie. It sucks because, like I said, I'm looking at this area that I'm running up this road to this gas station that's ahead, and I'm in love with every single piece of design choice they made. If this wasn't like a bombshell game. Now, this section would make sense in a lot of games, but it's almost so far removed from the cyberpunk aesthetic that is trying to bring you in with the lab and everything. And I get it. There's like Area 51 and labs in the deserts in Roswell, New Mexico type of conspiracy theories, and that all works. But it doesn't really feel like a bombshell game. It doesn't feel like I'm in the same world anymore. This feels like they plucked Shelly Bombshell out and then dropped her in a new environment and said, hey, look at this. Look at this. You're in like the 2000s world, but we put some post-apocalyptic type stuff in there. And, doesn't this kind of feel like Judge Dredd? And you're like, yeah, sure, I guess. I mean, I'll see where you're going with it because everything's pretty. And then you're like, oh, weren't you trying to be an immersive sim? And it's like, yeah, no, we forgot about that. There's invisible walls everywhere. It's just this weird contradictions of themes, of style, of everything, really. It just almost feels like they had so many ideas and they just didn't know what to do with them, so they just kind of threw everything at the wall and hoped it sticked. And you could tell where they took the time to really put in the detail and make things amazing with some of these giant landscapes and some of these over-the-top big moments. Like at the end of this desert area, in the daytime, you get this cool shootout after you upgrade your pistol into burst fire, and you're like, oh, cool, the pistol doesn't fucking suck a ton of dicks. And I mean, it honestly gets much, much better than the starting pistol. It's great that I can upgrade it to this point. It just feels weird because why didn't you just make this the pistol from the beginning? I mean, this doesn't take away from how cool this strip mall western shootout OK Corral moment was. These big moments I think really do land in this game. Having the helicopter sitting right above you while the dust kicks up and you're shooting into the dust trying to find your enemy. These are truly nipple chafing moments that I love, and this is where I have this part of me that's looking at all of this contradiction that I'm playing through up to this point, and I'm forgetting about it because there is greatness in here. And it's just so wild that I'm 2 levels into this game and I'm already thinking, oh, I fucking don't care about any of that bad shit. This is awesome. I love this. This is what I want. It's these moments that instantly suck me back in. And right after this, the game still had me because you go to like this biker bar that's just completely infested with the guys that are trying to kill you, but you're gonna go in stealthily and check everything out and find out all the secrets, and there's all this stuff you can interact with, and it's super cool and aesthetically pleasing, even though the beers are like each person's drinking for some reason an entire pitcher like they're John Belushi from the 70s. Like these police officers need to calm the fuck down. They are all alcoholics. That is way too much beer. You'd be so bloated. But I loved this whole opening section, the kitchen, and some of these internal areas are so gorgeous when they're not lab facilities. We'll get to more of those fuckers later, but just the aesthetic of this, man. I wanted to live and breathe this, and it's almost like I wish that they would have just said fuck that whole first section, started me in the desert, gone to here. You hear this a lot in movie reviews where they talk about trimming the fat, and I've heard it in games before when you're talking about like Ubisoft games where it's like, go to Tower 17 so you can see that guy's jerking off in the corner and you gotta kill him. But I don't hear it a lot in games like this. This game, if you would have trimmed some of the fat, instantly at least a half point higher on the Metacritic. I'm guaranteeing it. And on top of this whole area just being kind of tight to begin with, once you find the little logs you're supposed to find, then these weird abomination zombie type creatures break in. Now I'm as bored of zombies as everybody else is, but the fact that I have the lover boy and I can just hit scan all their heads while they're having a little war with the soldiers that you've been James Bonding around this whole time in this Western saloon in this cyberpunk game, it's cool stuff. Now again, it's odd that you're in a biker Western saloon in the middle of a cyberpunk game. Now it has a little bit of both features. It's got some honky tonk and some biker features. Now those overlap, but they're not the same thing. Bikers and cowboys don't always get along. This isn't a shocking thing. Listen to like any old country music, but it's kind of a cool aesthetic. It reminds me of an 80s movie. I was there. It's still not really hitting the vibe of Shelley Harris. Again, where this game doesn't really know what it wants to be, but it has some cool shit going for it. There's little fucking mini games. I love mini games. Turkey Puncher in Doom 3 was kick-ass. This reminds me of those light gun games that we all used to play at like Chuck E. Cheese, Alien or Area 51, Time Crisis. And it really put me back into that zone. I mean, they used to have the deer hunting one at the golf course by my house, and when I was a little kid, and I would go play that. It really put me back in this era, and I love when they do put extra stuff like this to do in games, but this game almost again, sometimes thinks it's an immersive sim, so it's like, oh, because we put this game in, well, we gotta put in some more immersive sim stuff. When you put the key in the lock of a door, no, you actually gotta put the key in the lock of the door. Why? I don't have footage of that right here. I think that the killer light gun game is way more interesting than watching me slip it into the hole. but it's just like some of the choices right away, and it's right after this section here that you're like, oh, I'm having so much fun, and you're messing around with the pool cues and playing light games, driving down the highway shooting shit, and then all of a sudden the game pulls you into a mine shaft. Oh yeah, and you're looking at rock walls and wood bullshit, same repeating pattern over and over again. Now this place isn't terrible, but you go from fighting like actual people who shoot back at you to just zombies. There's a little laser turret that's kind of fun to use, but to be honest, I kind of ran my fun with the zombies after I had shot them with the lover boy and then killed them with the laser. Now they're just, I'm fighting zombies in a cyberpunk game for some reason. It's like you couldn't have thought of a slightly better enemy type instead of taking the most generic monster ever created of all time. I really hate zombies. I don't know what it is. It's just they bore the fuck out of me. I just can't do it. They're not even that bad functioning as enemies in this game, and they add some variety, to be honest, but low-key generic and not a fan. Speaking on design choices, we have been in this weird Western world for such a long time at this point. I remember being in these tunnels and just thinking, we're still here? This is what we're doing now? And then eventually getting outside and we're in an old West town. I'm like, oh, so we're not just doing Western vibes. No, we're actually in the goddamn West. And on top of that, you got snipers in the windows of all of these buildings, right? And you'd think, oh, it's an FPS game. You got snipers, shoot the snipers and just move past them. Easy peasy. No. The snipers, you literally cannot shoot in the windows. Doesn't matter where you shoot. That is the dumbest thing ever. You can shoot. If they can shoot you, you can shoot them. There is a chance a bullet will sneak through. Not in Phantom Fury. Nah, it's not that type of game. We're not that good. The devs, I mean, not the snipers, because obviously, if you have a sniper rifle in Phantom Fury and you're the enemy, you're immortal. That makes sense. And all scattered across this entire Western town is like weird sci-fi building pop-ups. It's like all this military operation, fucking cyberpunk, futuristic pop-ups, military bullshits, which honestly takes away from the gorgeous level design that this would have, because this is some of the better looking Western level design I have seen in a game. It's just scattered with bullshit that ruins it every 2 seconds, only for this game to then follow this with another laboratory section that's just as annoying as the first laboratory section. Yeah, it's got better combat, but it's just as mazy, just as tedious. Every time you step foot in a lab in this game, it fucking sucks. Now, I know I've been really pessimistic up until this point, and I know what you're thinking. You hate it just like everybody else hates it. No, I don't hate this game. I actually like this game in a lot of aspects, but it is the type of constantly shifting tones that sucks. It's the unnecessary weapon upgrades that really feel like they should have just been on the weapon to begin with to make it more useful. I mean, I almost forgot that this upgrade system existed the moment I turned the game off, because yeah, it's kind of useful, but you really just tack the shit on and then forget about it. It almost feels like it's something that's added in later. I mean, Quake 4 did something where it just grabbed your gun, made it better, you kept playing the game. I don't know why this game didn't do that. It feels like the game that would want to do something like that. And I know I brought it up how this game is just a constant contradiction of itself and fighting themes, and it's funny that the first level that you could play in the demo was the train level, and it's one of the best highlights of how this game does so good and so bad at the same time, that you're either loving it or hating it, because you go into some of these cabin cars and you're like, oh, primo train design, this is some of the coolest looking train shit ever. You're blasting people, they're shooting ice at you, you're running dual SMGs, we're fucking hard to the wall, baby, this is cool looking. It's running this older style wood paneling to honestly just shifting tones to boring gray, regular sci-fi generic gray everywhere themed fucking train. It starts with that, goes to paneling, goes back to this, and it just is such a constant contradiction. And it sucks too, because like you'll get something that's cool, like a cool looking gun, and it'll be mid, or the guns always feel off. So it's not the gunplay pushing you forward. You're like, okay, well, it's the designs, and then the designs will start faltering on you, and you're back and forth, back and forth. And I have to say that I don't think the guns are as bad as people said. Now, when I was playing this game, it pulled me back to that Halo, Sin, Quake style gameplay, and I thought they did a fine job with it. I think the big thing that does hold it down is the upgrading. I think they should have just stuck with a weapon wheel and an alt fire and just let you go hog wild, and they would have had a much tighter experience. But like I said, Slipweight Ironworks doesn't understand what tight is. They're a hot dog in a hallway type of studio. I mean, even when you get to the next area where it's very Halo inspired, or it's very Pacific Northwest, and you're looking at this gorgeous scenery, but the car controls like jizz tornado fire hazards. If there's one thing I could look at a developer and say is, don't take inspiration from a game and then make it worse than the game that's inspiring you. Because Halo was never known for its incredible driving. It was always okay. It worked for the game. It was functional. It got the job done. And when you had a little bit of annoying problems with it, it was like, well, whatever. But it still worked. Halo's driving's always just kind of worked, and it might not be the best thing, but it's the best thing for Halo, if that makes sense. This game had a game to look at and say, oh, yeah, you know, these guys have done it in the past, let's just do what they did. No, they make it worse. How do you fuck it up worse than a game that's already been made? When you have a car that looks the same as Halo, you're in the Pacific Northwest that looks like Halo, and it does look gorgeous. It gave me such Halo 1 vibes when you're standing over there looking over the entire scenery of the ring. I want to love this. I want to live in this. I want to breathe this. But then I get into your fucking Warthog, and it's a jizz tornado fire hazard? No, dude. You have a fucking fire up Halo, feel the controls, say, okay, we'll put that same controls in the game. Bada bada boom, you fucking have a decent driving mechanics in a decent game. How did you fuck this up? How did you fuck this up so royally? Then to instantly redeem yourself the next time you get into a vehicle and have this awesome over-the-top on-rails helicopter section. No complaints about this. This is just fucking awesome, and I'm having a great time. It's weird how this game goes from being ass great. It's just so all over the place. And I at the whole time I was playing this game, I was streaming it, and people were like, how's you liking this game? It's garbage. And I'm like, I don't know about you, but I'm having a fucking great time right now, and it was shit like this. It's not the fucking car, but it was shit like this. That's enough talking about this game fighting with itself in aesthetic and gameplay. Let's talk some story. Why are we doing all this shit? Why are we going across the country all over the place for no reason, it seems? Well, we're trying to find basically a uranium core. It's called the Demon Core. Before a bunch of bad mamma jammas get it before us, and we're screwed, fucked totally in the ass. So we're there trying to find it. We're checking out labs and finding other notes, and eventually we get to the Demon Core itself. Well, surprise, surprise to no one, the moment we get this UFO-looking son of a bitch presented to our commanding officer, yeah, he decides, yeah, we don't need you anymore, Shelly. It's time for us to turn our back on you. You're too good of a gal, and I want to take over the world, so we're gonna fucking put you in custody and put this shit under martial law. And we have a betrayal, and now it's starting to get interesting. Once you hit this point in the game, the story starts heating up. You pull your gun, you get knocked out. You wake up at a simpler time, back when Shelly was still whole, where she didn't have the robotic arm before the Washington incident, when she still had all of her friends at her side, her old platoon, the people that were brothers and sisters to her, when her life was still whole, only for the walls and the world to crumble around you as you're getting trapped inside, to be pulled to a hospital bed, strapped down on a stretcher, where you're getting told you're a piece of shit for not saving everybody's life, and even though they were able to save your arm, they put you in some sort of sleep while this general's being an absolute douchebag. The whole early portion of the game, he wasn't an absolute dickhead, but this part he was just like, yeah, you fucking suck, Shelly. Remember when you were cool? Yeah, you fucking deserve to die back there. You're pretty much a bitch. I hate you. You have a stinky twat. He's just kind of going hard in the paint on this poor gal. We're then pulled into a city where there's a giant bomb, and it's obviously still a dream hellscape. But again, the way to go to the developers for building an absolutely gorgeous cityscape here. They should have just stuck with building a gorgeous city, because this is awesome. But you eventually do find your way to the bomb that started this whole chaos event in motion. It is the most pivotal, important moment in Shelly Bombshell history and destiny. She gets to this bomb, opens it up, and realizes she does not have time to disarm it. She's scared, she's alone, and for some reason, though she's right next to the bomb, she survives and her whole platoon dies. I'm not gonna question that because this is an action game and fuck it, what do I know? Still a little weird that she somehow survives right next to it and everyone else dies. But because of that, she is riddled with guilt, and that's why she's been playing the little bitch boy the entire game for this government agency. Well, that, and she wants to do what's right, not just for her and the people she's lost, but because she's always wanted to do the right thing, and sometimes you just can't make it in time. But we officially have a reason to keep fighting. We have a reason to keep playing. We're not just running errands, we're getting our life back. We're taking our pride back, and we're getting revenge on the son of a bitch who stabbed us in the back and has treated us like a piece of shit from day one. And to be honest, this is one of the things this game needed all the way up until this point, is to give me a reason to keep fighting forward. Give me something to latch on to, something to make the chaos that is the themes and the styles and the environments all make sense. Because I was just being a little errand bitch. Now I have something to push me forward. And not only that, I'm in a cool ass cyberpunk environment. Even jumping to the sewers and running through the streets, everything feels fucking cool. This is what the whole game should have been. Should have been in the streets of a cyberpunk utopia or dystopia. Because there's one thing I know for certain, is I love a cyberpunk aesthetic. I always have, I always will. I mean, RoboCop was one of my favorite games the year that game came out, and Baldur's Gate 3 was there, and I don't even care about Baldur's Gate 3. That game can live under a shelf forever for all I give a fuck, because I got the greatest iteration of RoboCop we will ever get. I love running through those environments, and even that game had a pretty diverse field of environments that it can mess with, and you never left the city. And Sin and also Judge Dredd felt the exact same way. You look at Judge Dredd with Metro City 1 and or 2, whatever Metro City you're in, you honestly feel like you're fucking living and breathing in that city. You're walking up, you're arresting citizens, you're doing all this cool shit, and honestly, part of the GDF is like basically being like Judge Dredd. I don't understand why they wouldn't have just fired up Judge Dredd versus Death and said, hey, look how they made this work in a fucking city. This is awesome. Because when I get to this later section in the game, I'm getting vibes like that. I'm getting what I wanted out of this goddamn game. I see it. And when I see that they have the inspiration from Sin, like so full on, that now this is in the Sin universe, I'm sitting here like, yes, you had the blue points. Look at the blueprints. Look at the Sin game. Look at what they did. They took what they had, put it on like a hot ass stripper, and then put it on the pole and collected fucking dollar bills, y'all. Why didn't you do the same thing, 3D Realms? I don't understand, because this cityscape is what you need to make a masterpiece. I'm looking around, even in the interior mall area that I'm here now. It's just so amazing, so perfect. I'm having fun with all the different weapon varieties. Do they feel like the best top-notch weapons of all time? No, but they feel decent. I'm having fun with them. I'm fucking killing things and I'm not getting bored. And then I go into the outer elements and it's just like a whole different world. without feeling like a completely disjointed experience where it does feel like a different world. Before, I felt like I was jumping from Western to weird James Bond game to weird future game, and then I get to this end portion and every little different environment leads to the next environment, and it's perfect. It's exactly what you wanted from this game from the moment you started it, and you didn't realize you wanted it until you got to the end, until you got to these last few missions, and you're like, holy shit, if they would have just made this game in this city from start to finish, this game wouldn't have been panned. It wouldn't have had bad reviews. It wouldn't be listed up there with bad Build 2 games, the sequel to Build Engine games, the curse, the awful tragedy that always befalls them. This game could have beat that. It could have made the jump to 3D without having to fucking trip over its own dick like Chevy Chase. What are you doing, man? What were you doing, guys? Slipgate, look at this. Look how gorgeous this shit is on screen. You can't beat this. This is amazing. And it's honestly the only place in the entire game where the diversity in locations is actually pretty in-depth, where it doesn't feel like I'm looking at the same area. Yes, the other areas had some very pretty things to look at and some wonderful environments, but it felt like I was just in a cutout of another game shoved into this game. Even when I was like running through the western town and going into the caves or whatever, it was like, okay, that's fine. But then they slapped a bunch of sci-fi elements in it and broke the whole vibes of everything. This, from start to finish, you'll go into a park and there'll be the monsters running at you, the zombies or whatever running at you, and they're still part of this game, and it still feels right because you're looking at a cityscape behind it. You're running over bridges, running through trash because this city has been occupied by zombies and giant fucking behemoths and soldiers and robots that fire fucking like endless weapons at you. It is awesome and perfect, and it feels like a giant fucking Fallout in a Postal game almost, and yet it took so long to get here. It took so long to get to this fact that it honestly got to the point where it was kind of insulting. In your mind, you're like, why didn't you just do this? You could have crafted a story that was pretty similar to what you had, considering the story didn't really kick off until you actually get to the level before this, the end of the level before this. It doesn't give you any of the information about Shelly beforehand. You wake up and you're a little bitch girl the whole time. Like, I played 5 different games all the way up until this point, and they were all mid. They would have been something that I've been like, it was like worth the $2 I paid for it. And then I got to a game like this, and it was like, see, those other games, they were leading up to something like this. This is something to go. Finally, they gave her a story. Finally, they did this. But it's in the same game. So you have to look at it as one giant element. And that's where this game has the biggest fucking falter. If they would have taken the time to just make this about the story in the city, where you're the fucking global defense force patrol officer in this city, you're dealing with the politics with fucking hardcore and some of the other elements, and how you could have even made John Blade a more crucial character, because up here ahead I fight this giant mini boss robot, right? This thing's sick. It looks like a kid's toy that you would have had in the 80s that you cranked up and had a bunch of lights. But instead of just a bunch of lights, it's shooting missiles at you. And you gotta stay on your fucking balls to get it killed. And these will pop up out of nowhere. And you know that you have to strategize to beat them. This is fun shit. This is the type of stuff we live for. This is what we fucking put nipple tassels on and go run down the middle of the street saying how great and happy we are to be alive. I love this. I was so hyped. But this leads right up into the next area where you get to run into a forgotten, underappreciated game character from a bygone FPS era. One of the guys that I own this game. I will cover this game on my channel, and I love the game that he comes from, Sin. And it would have been so cool to see the dynamic of Shelly running into hardcore, and maybe her and John Blade having this like back and forth talk about how maybe GDF has something wrong going in it, and how she's been influenced by the actions of the general talking down to her and telling her she was a piece of shit for letting that bomb go off and not knowing how to disarm it. This is the type of stuff that you could have built on with the story instead of just throwing him in and saying, yeah, you remember when John Blade was a thing from the Sin games? Do you remember? It was just seemed like such a waste. And it's such a cool moment when you do finally meet him. He's trying to get the gates open, and you're terrorizing all these bad guys trying to run your way. It's a typical fucking hold the position while people flood your way, Serious Sam type of vibes. But it's story oriented. That type of stuff could have worked throughout this entire campaign. But instead, you got one chick yapping in your ear. You got the general yapping in your ear. Nothing's really getting accomplished until he stabs you in the back, which is right before this mission. And it's also cool because John Blade gives you one of the best pistols in the entire game. Right here, he's like, here's my pistol. Remember this from Sin, guys? Remember it from Sin? I know I did the bit twice, but Jesus Christ, that's how this game feels. It's just kind of trying to hit you at the end with member berries when it doesn't need to do that because they already built an awesome ending here. They built something great. This is a fucking revenge push. But instead, you're just showing me the faltered opportunities you had. You had the rights to use John Blade in this, and this is how you use him? This is the way you put him in the game? And yeah, when you do finally meet up with the general and get a fight him, it's an awesome battle. He shows up in a mech, and it's perfect. Like I said, everything in this end section feels fucking perfect. And it just makes me think, what if you would have done that for the whole game? What if you would have done it? Because I'm looking at this boss fight, and there were boss fights before this. There's a boss fight against like 2 helicopters, a giant behemoth monster, but there's nothing quite as cool as this. This ending, they pulled out all the stops. This game, if you took the last section of this game and just put it down, and first level was just going to get the fucking demon core and then progressing into this, fantastic game, 10 out of 10. Or actually, probably just 8 out of 10. Guns need to be a little bit better. Scrap the fucking weird gun upgrading system, and you have an amazing fucking game here. I don't understand why they didn't do that. But if I had to be honest, I had so much fun with this, dude. I had so much fun being able to confront your demons head on with a fucking pistol to kick some ass the way we know Shelly Bombshell Harris can, while dropping one-liners the entire time, moving around the arena trying to cap this son of a bitch in the anus, trying to really give him some asshole shots. That's the dream, baby. She put our strap-on on and took care of business. And another travesty that really hits this, I'm using John Blade's gun right here, right? And I have this great arsenal of weaponry. There's like 12 weapons in this game, and they're all pretty decent. There's some that suck, but they could have been cut. At the end of the day, they're all fairly fun to use. Most of the time, even the ones that aren't great have good ideas behind them. And to think how they could have been so much more utilized, so much more potential could have been really fucking milked out of them. We got it on the milking table. We could have just juiced it for all it's worth. And instead we have the weird upgrades and all this other stuff to add to them. And I know I'm harping, but it's just, I look at how all the stuff works once you've upgraded, and it's like, you have so much variety in weaponry here. The upgrades were just so unnecessary. At a certain point, it's like, I'm trying to find ammo for certain guns because I've already utilized the guns that I prefer the most, because I haven't upgraded some, or I haven't done this with some, and there's just so many to pick from that I'm just kind of going back to the basics, to the 3 that I know that I've spent time with the most. If you would have drip-fed these guns, not really drip-fed, but throughout the game, each level handed me a new gun to have fun with, until the end where I get the BFG gun or whatever that really tears people to hell. It's just, I'm in the hardcore porn section and we're plowing some cheeks. Super gangbang mentality. And utilizing all those weapons and how I've grown accustomed to them to really flesh out these boss fights that I have at the end, because having a 2-tier boss fight, even though it's the same guy twice, it's just him running away, so it works for a story beat. I like that. Even though the boss fight doesn't really change, it's more of an environmental shift, I still like the fact that I'm pushing this son of a bitch. He has pushed me to the last straw. Now it's time I push back. And then I get to really pound him with all the weapons that I've come to be accustomed with and really learn to love. But the game never really gave me the opportunity to fall in love with each one of these weapons by themselves. It's like, oh, I got this new assault rifle, but it kind of feels like I just use it, and then when I'm out of that, I jump to the machine guns, and then I'm out of that, and it's like, oh, okay, well, hopefully I'll get ammo for my automatic weapons again. Until then, it looks like I'm using the automatic pistol, or I'm gonna fucking use the ion bow for a while. It's more that you're just kind of falling into these weapons instead of really wanting to utilize them because you like them. It's like, I'll use them until they're out of ammo. And it sucks too, because you get to where Shelly's finally gonna disarm the bomb again, right? She is gonna redeem herself for the mistakes that have happened in the past, the thing that led her to having a robotic arm, and the death of her entire team. You're getting this realization after 30 minutes of just finding out what happened in the past. I haven't lived with it, I haven't breathed it, so when she's huffing and puffing and having this little small mental breakdown, you're like, yeah, I get it's been a long time for you, but I found out about this 15 minutes ago, so I really don't care that much. I'm not that invested. And it sucks because, like I said, the ideas are great here. And the fact that the only other person who's been talking to you, you're like, oh, she's on my side, she's there, and then it's another backstab, another person stabbing you in the back. They want the demon core for themselves. They're just as evil. And so you get this giant fucking fight at the end after another backstab betrayal, and it's a cool idea. It's great in the terms of this last section. If you start this with Shelly fucking having her breakdown all the way up to this point, which is only like a few hours, you're like, yeah, this is perfect for a very contained fucking game. But again, I felt like I didn't even care about this bitch. She was somebody I'd forgot was really a thing. She would talk to me sometimes, and it was like, oh, well, she's got my back up until this point. Yeah, we're taking these guys down. Only she's just as evil as the last guy. So, cringe. Fucking cringe. It sucks, too, because if it would have been like this big, deep cabal from the very beginning that me and John Blade are trying to discover and trying to uncover while I deal with my past traumas, and early in the game show me what happened in these traumas, only to have like this one girl helping us out, only she's just as evil from the very beginning. That's a great twist. And we know the general might be evil, and we're investigating him, and as we're getting these pieces that we need to make the world what we think better according to the general, it's all a ploy to make him have all power, be all powerful. That's a good twist, but it doesn't do any of that legwork. It's like, oh, well, you see, this is an FPS game. We don't really have to try that hard. It's like, why don't you have the same mentality as if you were making any other game? Go in, do the work, build a character, build a story. Oh, cool, we can use John Blade for this game? Awesome. Let's actually utilize him for the story and not just for a couple throwaway lines and a cool gun at the end of the game. Let's utilize some characters. Let's build an actual world here. Because I don't feel like any actual world building was done. I don't know anything else about the GDF other than they were a corrupt organization. That is it. It didn't fill the world out. The first thing that Halo 2 did compared to Halo 1 was it looked at Halo 1, it was like, alright, that game was good, but how do we build the world war? How do we add more story to this? And that's why it's considered one of the best games of all time. And this game just feels like a shittier version of Ion Storm. And that's really how it boils down. I like this game. I don't hate it. I've had a lot of fun with it. It is something that on sale, I would tell you to buy. I think it's worth it. It's got some bugs. It's got some problems. But the end portion of this game is well enough worth the price of admission by itself. I just wish the rest of the game could have really held up and pushed the greatness of this ending all the way up to the top. But that's all I got for you guys today. If you really want to know what happens after that, Shelly becomes a badass and saves the city. I mean, you see it right here. People point guns at her and she's like, do you want to be a douchebag? No, you don't want to be a douchebag. Join me, and that's the end of the game. And that's the end for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and suck upon my titties. I love you all. Bye.